Hello, everybody. It's Andrew Steffensmeier with McMill CPAs and Advisors, and I also have Jason Love on the line with us from Midwest Bank.
Hello.
So we're going to go through. There's been some new changes to the Paycheck Protection Program in the last few days, and it applies only to self-employed Schedule C filers. And so these new rules are in effect now until the end of March. So we're going to go through those quickly. This webinar is meant just for those self-employed Schedule C filers. So our agenda here today is, we're going to go over these new updated rules and see, does your self-employed business qualify? We'll kind of lay out 3 or 4 scenarios on where you might be at in the PPP process. And then lastly, we're going to just go through a timeline when we need to have these documents submitted to our bankers.
So right here is a Schedule C for a sole prop. What we are looking at today is the gross income, so line number 7. Last time we were looking at line item 31, I believe it was 31 for net income. So what they've changed is now they're saying that the Schedule C borrowers are very similar to what the Schedule F borrowers are. They can actually use the gross income up to $100,000. So this changes the game for a lot of the Schedule C borrowers, because some of them are showing a negative net income, or maybe they're showing $1,000 net income. Well, if they had sales of $100,000, they'd be eligible for a $20,833 loan. A couple things to note is this is not retroactive. So if you applied with your bank already, it's been approved by the SBA, it's been funded by your bank, and they've reported that on their 1502 report, then you're ineligible to reapply for the increased amount. What the 1502 report is, that's a report that the banks use to send to the SBA to let them know which loans have been booked. Most banks are sending these on a monthly basis. So if you were in one of the first applications in January, even early February, there's a good chance that your bank's already submitted that 1502 report to the SBA. One thing you can check is you can call the bank and see if it's been submitted to the SBA. Because if it's been submitted and funded, but not, if your application has been submitted to the SBA and funded by your bank, but the report hasn't been sent on the 1502, then you're eligible for the bank to withdraw the application and then resubmit for a new application. So then you can get that increase at that time. Another scenario would be if you submitted your application to the bank, they've submitted to SBA, but SBA hasn't approved it. The bank would be able to go in there and withdraw the application and then resubmit with a new loan number with a new dollar amount.
Right. Yeah, and as Jason said, this new rule will impact almost every Schedule C. So any Schedule C that showed a loss previously was ineligible to apply, and now as long as you have gross income, we can, as Jason said, go off that gross income number instead of net income. And so this will apply to almost every Schedule C filer that we have as a client.
And the one thing to note on that is you can use your 2019 Schedule C or your 2020 Schedule C. You obviously want to pick the one with the highest gross revenue, but they're allowing you to use either one because they understand that some of the Schedule C income for 2020 has been reduced because of COVID, or the tax returns aren't ready by your accountant. So you can use 2019 or 2020, and this applies for the first draw as well as the second draw. On the second draw, you still have to show a reduction in income of 25% from quarter to quarter, quarter over quarter, from 2019, 2020, or year over year.
Right, and if this is your first time watching PPP webinar of ours, we did record a few back when the second round came out. So that basically said, if you have a gross revenue reduction of 25% or more, you're eligible to go back in and apply for a second round loan. And so we do have those webinars posted on our website if you're wondering about that 25% reduction. So we'll go over a few buckets of clients that we think will be eligible to apply with these new rules. So if you're a first-time applicant, never did the PPP program for first or second round, If you have gross receipts, then all we need to do is get those Schedule Cs to our bankers and have them apply. So it's pretty much a, let's get our Schedule Cs rounded up and get that to the bank. Second bucket of people is if you already did the first round under a net income rule, had the loan funded, forgiven, that's all good. Obviously it's a lower amount, but now we're trying to go back for round two. If we're doing a round two loan, the first question is, do we hit that 25% reduction? If we do, then we can use our gross income number instead of our net income number. So again, at that point, if that is your business, then let's get those Schedule Cs to the bank and let them apply. And then that third scenario, or that third bucket, is, as Jason put it, if you've applied using your net income number for either the first or second round recently, and that loan has either been funded and not on that 1502, then banks can go in and grab that application and readjust that amount for that gross income number. And then, lastly, if you've had a first round loan that was applied, funded and forgiven, and then same with the second round, basically if that is on that 1502 report, there's nothing we can do.
Correct.
And then the last part there, the overall deadline for the PPP program is supposed to be the end of March.
And it should, we should note that the deadline is end of March. They don't feel like they're going to run out of funds for this program this time around. What's going to happen probably March 15th to the 25th is a lot of Schedule F borrowers, especially here in Northeast Nebraska, they applied for round one PPP. So they're going to be eligible to reapply most likely around that 20th of this month. So if you have a Schedule C application you're sitting on, it'd be to your benefit to try to get in as soon as possible. Now, all the banks in the Northeast Nebraska, for the most part, they're staying on top of these, they're staying ahead of everything. But as banks start to see the influx of the Schedule F applications for round two, you'll see a little slower timeline on that. So if you want to get in by that 3/31 deadline, you want to get in sooner or later. Last time around, they extended that deadline, but we have not heard of any extensions at this moment.
Right. And then for any, I'm going to go back a slide real quickly here. So anybody that's here for the first time, now we can use that gross income number instead of our net income number. And to see what your eligible PPP loan amount would be is taking that gross income number now, divided by 12 times 2.5 months. And so if this is your first time, that's how that PPP loan is calculated.
Yep.
And I know I just had a few questions for you, Jason. So, if a client is here for the first time, second time, what do they need to bring to their banker just to have this application process go smoothly?
So for the first time borrower, we'd ask them to bring an application. We have the application on our desk or on our website, as well as McMill has the new applications out there for the Schedule C borrowers, as well as bringing their 2019 or 2020 Schedule C, and then we can double check and make sure that the numbers they add up. Now, if it's a deal where you're asking for wave 2, we ask you to bring the Schedule C's, the applications, the wave 2 application, but also proof of the reduction in income. So if it's quarter to quarter, or if it's year over year, some kind of proof from gross receipts on a Schedule C might just be looking at the bank statements for one quarter to the next. As well as if you had payroll expense, we need payroll documentation on a Schedule C as well. Basically, what we're looking for is you to justify the loan amount that you've came up with. Now, if you need help with that, that's where we come into play, as well as your accountants. We can kind of help you put together that number.
Sure. And then second question would be, so let's say somebody is here for the first time and they've done their first round application and their net income was over that 100,000 number. Do they need to do anything under these new gross income rules?
No, the max is 100,000, so they wouldn't have to do anything different than what they're doing before. Just provide the Schedule C as well as the application.
Right. And then, you know, like you've touched on, we can use 2019 Schedule C or 2020, whatever's available, and then obviously whatever has the higher gross income number. And then lastly, if somebody has a Schedule F and they've already applied, you know, here in the last few months, it's my understanding that you can't go back in if you have a Schedule C as well and submit under your same social.
Correct. When we go in to submit under the same social security number, it kicks it back saying that this application or this person already has a round 1 PPP or round 2 PPP. So you're ineligible. You know, you're only able to apply for one schedule unless you have a different tax ID number tied to that schedule.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I think that should do it. So as long as you know, we covered everything on your end, Jason.
I think so.
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you everybody for joining. I know we just wanted to hit on this new rule change here, and yeah, hope everybody has a good spring and enjoy that nice weather we're having.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.